Look, I'm gonna say something and hear me out. All right, hear me out. Don't crucify me when I say it. Just hear me all the way out. But look, this is the greatest collection of young talent that we've ever seen in DC sports history, and it ain't even close. It's not even close. If you consider all the sports and who we got on these rosters in really all four sports, this is the most talent we've seen in DC sports history. Think about this. We went from having zero national superstars. I'm talking about zero national superstars since I've been born. All right. To really potentially having two or three superstars in every sport. Every sport. I'm gonna run it down. I mean, we're gonna go through it. But every sport in DC sports has a chance right now to have at least one superstar in every sport, and we didn't have any. We didn't have any. When I grew up, none. We didn't have a national superstar in DC sports. John Riggins might be the closest. I mean, I wouldn't call John Riggins a whole book. He more like a possible. John Riggins is a possible. But I'm talking national superstar. I'm not talking about Riggo level, even though I love him as a Redskin. I'm talking about LeBron, Kobe, MJ. I'm talking about Shaq, Magic, Brady, Vic, Montana, Mahomes, Prime, Ken Griffey Jr., A-Rod, Barry Bonds, Albert Pujols, real national superstars. That's what I'm talking about. Darryl Green was ours. All right, Hall of Fame player, ours, one of the best to ever do it, to get out on that island by himself and shut down his side, one of the best to ever do it. But he's not a national superstar. I'm sorry, he was not a national superstar. Sean Taylor, one of my favorite players of all time. I don't think we'll ever see a freak of nature like Sean Taylor. I don't think we'll ever see one like that again, not at the safety position. But look, he didn't become a national superstar until the tragedy. Let's be honest. He wasn't even considered one of the three best safeties in the league at the time nationally. I thought he was the best. I thought he was the best safety in the league, because I watched a lot of football. I watched a lot of football other than the Redskins. But nationally, he was known for a couple of big hits. You know, he had the hit on a punter in the Pro Bowl. Nationally known for some off the field type issues. Kind of on the rise as a player. And that last season, you know, was kind of coming into his own, looking like he was about to be a actual Pro Bowl selection, and then he got hurt. But he was not a national superstar until that terrible night in Miami. I'm sorry, he just what? John Wall, not a national superstar. Gilbert, C-lister at best. Maybe a B-lister that one season when he had the $1 million birthday party. Everybody remember that at Love, the $1 million birthday party. But not a national superstar. I mean, I'm going down. Bryce Harper. I mean, he might have been maybe a national superstar. If he got a couple MVPs with the Nats, I think at least one MVP with the Nats. But if he had won the World Series like they did the following year after he signed with Philly, if he had won the World Series with the Nats, he probably would have been a national superstar playing for the Washington Nationals. He probably would have become one. But he is one now in Philly. I mean, even though they ain't win at all, I mean, you know, Philly's just a bigger sports town in terms of, historically speaking, you know, guys from Philadelphia following their team. But he wasn't a national superstar with the Nats. I'm sorry. Ovi is the leading goal scorer in the history of the NHL. But the nation never really embraced Ovi like that because he was a Russian. They never really embraced him like that from a national perspective. Crosby was the superstar. Ovi wasn't a superstar like that because they, you know, country ain't really messed with, you know, he was Russian. And they you know, they kind of, on that level, they kind of messed with the young Canadian, you know, Crosby at the time more than Ovi. So we didn't have one. Not one national, not Not that Kobe level, not that MJ level, not that Magic level, not even that Brunson type level. We ain't got no national superstar. Point blank period. But look at what we got coming down the pike. Look at what we got coming down. Hey, look here. Youngins, YNs, you better savor this. Hey, you better taste it and enjoy it. And hey, enjoy every morsel that you can get. Because it can get real unflavorful around here when it comes to national superstar. I'm telling you, we ain't had one when I was growing up. It can get real dark sports-wise. So what I'm about to get into, youngins, you better enjoy it. You better enjoy it because what's about to happen sports-wise in DC sports is unlike what it's ever been since I've been born in 1978, December 1978. I'm talking every sport. Okay, let's go through it. Skins, Jaden Daniels. He probably already is a national superstar. Probably already is. It's something that's acting like they forgot because of last season with all the injuries and whatnot, including to Jaden Daniels himself. He didn't play in but maybe 4 complete games all season long. Somehow he regressed. No, he was injured and didn't play. All right, but he was on the cusp of national superstardom. He might be right there right now. I'm going to call him already a possible. Jaden Daniels is already a possible. All right. If you don't want to give him a whole book, he already a possible. All right. Sonny Styles on the defensive end. He got a chance to be a national superstar. I'm not saying that he is one right now, but I'm saying potentially he could be a national superstar. You talking about the number 7 pick in the draft, and we have never seen a linebacker in the league with his athletic profile. Never. His combination of size, speed, athletic ability, smarts, football smarts, vision, tackling ability. We never seen one with this athletic profile. He has an opportunity to become a national superstar. Bill got an opportunity to become a national superstar. Krosky Merritt. Yes. Ja'Cory Bill Krosky Merritt has a chance to become a national superstar. If that offense getting humming the way I think it's going to with that offensive line and David Blau calling plays, I think Bill got a chance to become a national superstar. When you factor in his potential production in that new offense and his personality, he got the personality to become a national superstar. Or also on the defensive end, Oweh, depending on depending on his production, but I think he has the potential to become a national superstar. That's 4 right there with the potential. We already got one possible. All right, but potentially we can have 3 superstars on that roster: Jaden Daniels, Sonny Styles, and Bill Krosky Merritt. That's just on the skins. That's just on the skins, Slim. We ain't had one, period. And just on the skins, we could potentially have 3 superstars. Wiz time, the Washington Wizards, the Wizards, formerly the Boulay, the Washington Bullets, the Washington Wizards. Oh my gosh. Did you see AJ DeBonsa in the summer league? I know it's the summer league. Okay. You got to play the games that's in front of you. And what was in front of him right there was a summer league, a series of games that's played among first and second year players, whoever the teams throw at the summer league in Vegas, first and second year players. I'm just saying his game it's going to get refined. Of course, the summer league, he's not playing against the kind of competition that he's going to see in the league. But I'm just saying you can see what type of game he has. You can see the length. You can see the length on both ends of the court. You can see them long arms on the defensive end. Heck of a block shot he had on the 3-point ball. You can see what's possible on the defensive end. And then his ability to finish at the rim with contact and power sometimes and agility. He can finish with an up and under. He got the he got the athleticism and he got the he got the bend and the to be able to finish with awkward positions. He got that mid-range game. He finishes through contact. He can dunk on your head. Yes, he's got to improve with the 3-ball, but superstar potential, national superstar potential. Did you see Trey Johnson in that summer league? Did you see him? I'm talking about multiple Six Man of the Year awards. Multiple Six Man. You know, I'm talking about him coming off the bench with multiple Six Man of the Year awards. And the only reason them Six Man of the Year awards gonna stop is because he eventually gonna come in and be a starter, a la James Harden in OKC. Remember how that dude was coming off the bench, buckets, automatic. Keyshawn George, he got a chance to be a national superstar. Will Riley, did you see him? Did you see him? These young guns. Come on now. Alex Sarr, are you kidding me? So, okay, just with the young guns alone, AJ, Sarr, Trey Johnson, Keyshawn George, Will Riley. Will Riley was on some takeover type stuff in the summer league. I understand it's a summer league, but check this out. I didn't even mention already NBA superstars, Trae Young and Anthony Davis. I didn't even mention them. Are you kidding me? Let's say they just go on and continue their. Let's say Trae continues his career. That's a superstar right there already. And we're not even including the young guns. We're not including Anthony Davis. Yo, it's a new era in DC sports. You can doubt it if you want. You can doubt it if you want, but I'm telling you, it's a new era in DC sports. New era. The Nats, you gonna tell me they not ahead of schedule? Of course they are. Why are they ahead of schedule? Have you seen these bats? You seen these young bats on the Nationals? Have you seen them? James Wood, DMV's own James Wood. Come on now. Woods, come on. Power out of this world. Knocking them out of the park. Consistently. Abrams, the best hitting shortstop in the league. Abrams. Hitting everything. And then they getting contributions from dudes you ain't never heard of, dude that wasn't supposed to do nothing, coming on the scene, like hitting them out the park. What's going on with the Nets? Potential superstars. Especially if you put them on that playoff stage. You put them on that playoff stage, you know chicks dig the long ball. So you put them on that playoff stage and watch bombs away, dude, superstars. Superstars. And Ovi, I mentioned Ovi, and about how, because of his Russian roots, the nation didn't want to embrace him, for the majority of his career. But what the nation does love, they love a story where you got an old head that's out here doing it amongst these youngins. They love that kind of story. And I'm talking about my man 40 plus with the grays and all. We both was youngins together coming up in this thing. Well, I wasn't coming up in no hockey. Let me stop that. But Ovi, grays in his beard all over the place, still getting it done on the score, like from the office, right there from the corner. Bow, getting it done. Now he got some help. Now he got some guys that's potential superstars on the hockey side. We went from zero, Slim, to potentially 1 to 3 in every sport. Y'all better enjoy. Y'all better enjoy.
Skins in a Berg, skins in a Berg. Don't know if you heard, we got skins in a Berg. Skins in a Berg, skins in a Berg. Don't know if you heard, we got skins in a Berg. 82, 87, 91, think the time's right. 2026, we the pick, get your mind right. Burgundy and gold, from my head to my toes. Talking X and O's, no debate.
Welcome to the Skins in the Berg podcast. The Skins in the Berg podcast, the best source for Commanders commentary in the Carolinas and beyond. I'm your host, LG, and we're going to continue with this State of the Roster series, installment 2. If you recall, on installment 1, we talked about that front 7 of the defense, that front 7 of the Commanders defense. We included the defensive tackles. We went after them defensive ends and linebackers. We talked about how lumping these groups together makes sense from the standpoint of what we all expect to happen, at least in the defense pre-snap. We talked about what it's going to look like pre-snap from the standpoint, of like what kind of base defense they're going to be in when they line up. We talked about how, the whole front 7 might be up on that line of scrimmage and all 7 might be coming downhill with a blitz at any time. Or we might have the inside linebacker. We might have the A and B gaps, flooded with the appearance that we all coming, and then 4 drop back. but yet that nickel coming to create a 4-man rush, but not the 4 you thought. As my man Devontae Jones said, one of the ideals as it relates to the defense is it's not about where you line up, it's where you wind up. So we went over the guys that's competing in those rooms and who we expect to have the most impact. You know, well, every day in practice though, those guys on the front seven, they're gonna be going against the position group that we gonna cover next, and that is that offensive line, the O line. Yes, the O line. We made the O line a thing, and when I say we, I mean this Redskins organization. We the ones who really glamorized and glorified the offensive line. Wasn't nobody thinking about no offensive line until the Hogs. It was kind of an afterthought until the Hogs. So we the organization responsible for ushering in these big time paychecks for these O linemen. All right. Now, overall, the O line, I think it's a good group. All right. I think it's definitely a good group. And by the end of the season, I think, if I'm being honest, I think we'll conclude that this O-line is one of the better units in football. I think that's going to be the conclusion at the end of the season. Headlined by All-Pro candidate Laramie Tunsil, the big guy. Yeah, I think that even though the Tunsil signed, he signed that huge contract extension, I think he's still going to play with this chip on his shoulder because he feel like he was slighted last year. Last year, his performance was that of an all-pro level, but he didn't even get a Pro Bowl sniff. I think he's going to have a chip on his shoulder, even though he signed that big extension. I think he's out to prove that he the best tackle in the game. And look, I got one of two things happening. One or two things happening as it relates to Laramie Tunsil. Either he plays like he played last season, and not better than he played, but if he's just able to maintain his level of play from a year ago. All right, let's say he just plays like he played a year ago. You combine that with offensive success and team success overall. If you just combine him playing like he played last year with overall team success, he's going to be considered the best tackle in the game. Yeah. If that offense get to humming and he plays like he played last year, I ain't even talking about he elevates his play. Of course, no drop off. But if he plays like he played last year and the offense does what I think they're going to do and the overall team success is what it is, he's going to be considered the best tackle in the game. Mark it down. But even beyond his play on the field, where he's showing tremendous value is he's really stepped up as a leader as it relates to bringing along Josh Connolly. Josh Connolly Jr. out of Oregon has tremendous talent. Physically, though, he was getting dominated last year, especially early on last year against some formidable pass rushers. He was getting dominated. He struggled, no doubt. No doubt. But he faced a bit of a gauntlet when it came to them first few weeks. He wasn't very strong at holding his ground at the point of attack when it came to bull rushes and whatnot. Some of these strong, grown man strength having type dudes coming at him, he wasn't able to handle that. But Tunsil then wrapped his arms around him in the offseason, got his body right, got him working out on some grown man transforming his body type stuff to where now with his mentorship, his leadership, looking at film, showing him how to be a professional, I think it's going to take it to the next level. And you looking at potentially having the best set of bookends in football. I said it. I ain't stutter. We looking at having the best bookends in football at the left and right tackle position. That's the offensive line. Best bookends in football potentially. At right guard, Sam Cosmi, he one of the best right guards in the league. I mean, he already is made, a Pro Bowl. Already made a Pro Bowl. They say, yes, he's coming off of ACL the year before. But they say that second year coming off the ACL, you really start feeling better than you felt even before your injury. And you cannot question Cosmi's toughness. We'll see if he's able to maintain the athleticism pre-surgery. That he had pre-surgery. We'll see if he's able to maintain that. But if you're talking about in a zone system, Laramie Tunsil, Josh Conley Jr., Cosme at that right guard position, I mean, you might be talking about the best that did. Like, that's giving Philly a run for their money when it come to best offensive lines. When it come to best offensive lines. And then you got a hard charging, Kaytron Allen just putting his foot in the dirt, making that cut, penetrating his way through. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm supposed to be talking about the offensive line. I'm talking about the offensive line. But it's exciting, man. It's exciting when you consider how they're gonna mesh talent with scheme as it relates to this offensive line. Now, next is where the most intriguing competition is on the entire team. And one of the reasons why it's the most intriguing is because on that offensive line, they typically play the entire game without subbing. You know how O lines work. Whatever the O line is, they're gonna play the whole game. You're not gonna sub in and out O linemen. I know the Skins did that one time a couple of years back where they subbed a couple of guys. They might yeah, it was Brandon Coleman. They was subbing him in and out on his rookie season. But for the most part, your O line is what it is until somebody get hurt. All right, so whoever wins that left guard competition in camp, that's going to be the one that plays the entire season unless somebody get hurt or unless they suck beyond measure and they got to replace them. All right, but that competition right there on that left guard position is between Chris Paul and Brandon Coleman. All right, and there's some belief that while Chris Paul was able to beat out Brandon Coleman in a Kingsbury-led offense, there's some belief that Coleman's game, it might be more suitable for a system that, under David Blau. David Blau, the new offensive coordinator, really got the bulk of his tutelage under offensive coordinators such as Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, Ben Johnson in Detroit, Cliff Kingsbury. He's talked about kind of blending some of the best that he's taken out of all three of those guys. So assuming it's more of a zone style, I think Brandon Coleman, or at least some of what you hear coming out of Ashburn, is that Brandon Coleman, from an athletic standpoint, is more suitable for the zone running game as opposed to Chris Paul. But hey, we'll see. We'll see if Brandon Coleman is the starter, who I think that's who they want to kind of be the starter, and he doesn't just suck tremendously. I think it'll be really it's his job to lose. It's his job to lose. All right, now at center, I think it's Nick Allegretti's job to lose at center, but it's two things that we do know. We can speculate on whether, what they're going to do at center. And it's a strong speculation, but two things we know. One, we know that the Commanders did take a shot at Tyler Linderbaum on the first day of free agency, basically acknowledging a need for upgrade. They told you that they think they need to upgrade the center position by throwing big money at Tyler Linderbaum. Now, he's a special talent at the center position. The center position, just in general, is not one that you typically throw a lot of money at. But I hear they made him an offer, And then when you think about it, when it comes to trying to upgrade the position, they really doubled down on that notion by drafting Matt Gubin out of Michigan State. They didn't get Tyler Linderbaum. All indications are that they went after him hard, but was just outbid by Oakland. I'm sorry, the Raiders. They don't play in Oakland no more. Las Vegas Raiders. But then they doubled down on the fact that they thought they needed an upgrade by drafting Matt Gubin out of Michigan State. The team is telling you, that we might need to upgrade by their moves they making. Now, where they can afford to be kind of where they can afford to have made the wrong move on the offensive line, center is probably the position where they can afford a physical mismatch. because centers get help from the guard, and if from the guards, and if Allegretti, physically struggles, you know, we gonna see what the young Spartan can do, but it's not gonna really be a make or break type season if that center struggles, because he's always getting help from that guard anyway. Now, injuries. Injuries are a constant theme on every NFL roster. So having some degree of depth is very, 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 very necessary. Having some degree of depth. You gotta have some depth when it comes to offensive linemen, because injuries gonna happen. Nobody in this organization can afford to have another season sabotaged by injury. Nobody can afford that. Adam Peters can't afford that. Dan Quinn can't afford that. The only people who really can is the owners, because they ain't going nowhere. But from a coaching and a GM standpoint, nobody can afford to have another season completely sabotaged by injury. So we got to make sure we got good quality starter type depth coming off the bench. We got to make sure we got it, because if somebody goes down, we cannot afford to have the whole season to go down because somebody got hurt. We got to have some quality depth. But guess what? The good news is I think we got some. The first two dudes coming off the bench, the first two guys coming off the bench, it's going to be, okay, first of all, whoever loses that starting left guard battle between Brandon Coleman and Chris Paul, they're going to be more than equipped to come in and start for us with little to no drop off, really, when you think about it. Either one of them guys, they should be able to come in and handle things on either of the guard spots. After that, we got a couple of swing guys that can play both tackle positions and guard, really, in a relief situation. Trent Scott. Let's not forget about Trent Scott. Trent Scott will forever be the answer to the trivia question: who caught Jaden Daniels' first touchdown pass? Yeah, Trent Scott. In that game against Cincinnati. If you're a Skins fan, you know it well. Coming out of halftime, they driving down the field. Fake Trent Scott report is eligible. Jaden Daniels get a little toss to him right there in the middle of the end zone. Kind of to the left of the end zone, but really in the end zone. Trent Scott can play either left tackle or left guard. Andrew Wiley, former Chief, he can come in and play right guard and right tackle if somebody go down. And then of course you got Gulbin, who can play center and guard if need be, the guy they just drafted out of Michigan State. So that's decent. I think that's decent depth right there. We can't have a tragedy like we had last season with just multiple guys going down. We can't have that. But I think we got some good quality depth. All right. No team in professional sports, no team in professional sports can endure what we went through last year injury-wise. No team can endure that. What we went through last year as far as injuries, it don't matter who you are in professional sports. You can't endure that. You can't endure first, second, and third level depth chart positions out for the season. You can't, come on now. A lot of teams, man, it'd be one dude go down. That's it for their season. We had the quarterback, the most important position, go down, and several support positions go down to the point where it became laughable, man. They had to introduce themselves, during the coin toss. Some of them dudes, I watched the previous game. Next game, I don't know who that is. That's just a fact. No team in sports can endure that. Now, with that said, you got to have some quality depth. And I think they got some quality depth. I think the ceiling on the offensive line, if you really look at the O-line, position by position, I think the ceiling is top 3 O-line in football. Top 3. I think the floor is really somewhere in the middle of the pack. All right? I think at the very least they're going to be is middle of the pack offensive line-wise in the NFL. I think the very best or the ceiling is going to be top 3 O-line in the game. But make sure you guys keep tuning in, In our third installment on the next episode of the State of the Roster series, third installment, let's see if you can guess where we're going to go next. I'll give you a few seconds to guess. Let me see. Yeah, no, we're going to dive into that secondary. We're going to dive into that secondary, a.k.a. the DBs or the defensive backs, a.k.a. the cornerbacks and safeties, them DBs. We're going to get into that secondary. Cornerbacks, safeties, nickelbacks, strong safeties, free safeties. We're getting into that back half of the defense, a spot that we've been weak in for at least a decade. All right. I'm just going to give you this right here. We haven't had a good secondary, not a good secondary, since we had Fred Smoot, Sean Springs, Carlos Rogers, Sean Taylor, and LaVon Landry. That secondary right there was decent. Sean Springs, Carlos Rogers, Sean Taylor, LaVon Landry. That was a pretty decent secondary right there. Under Greg Williams. That was the last time we had one though. So, obviously we made some changes in personnel and we got to upgrade the scheme, I think. But will it be enough to show clear improvement back there? Will it be enough? I don't see how we could be any worse, but will it be enough to show some clear improvement in that back end? All right, because once again, I can't be pulling my hair out in disgust over another blown assignment for another year. Another third and long conversion that's like, okay, is there a third and long that we can stop? I mean, how many times we seen third and impossible get converted against us? Sure, the front seven bears some responsibility with that, with the pass rush, but a lot of times it's goofy communication and goofy lack of communication and goofy positioning by that secondary. Did we do enough to improve on that secondary from both a personnel standpoint and a schematic standpoint? We're going to discuss that coming up on the next Skins in the Berg podcast. Peace out.